Hello everyone, greetings from the Overseas Progressive Pakistanis, the Netherlands. And my name is Wahid Bhatti, and on behalf of the OPP, I am glad to announce that we are starting a new series of video logs. Video logs will contain interviews, discussions, talks on various topics, and presentations, and perhaps some other formats too. We generally choose topics which are not often debated in the society, and if they are debated very superficially. So we always try to talk rationally, give evidence-based and research-based comments and remarks. Our today's topic is the impact of wars on people, on societies in general. But before I proceed with our today's topic, let me please introduce Overseas Progressive Pakistanis, the Netherlands, to you. The purpose of this organization is to provide a platform to the people who endeavor to enhance cooperation among communities to promote progressive values. So we talk about the events and the issues from a progressive point of view. Our vision is summed up in two words, which is unity in diversity. Our mission statement says to strive to eliminate exploitation and discrimination through meaningful dialogues. We believe in meaningful dialogues to engage with the people and try to together find a common point of view or a common platform. Our political inclination is that we believe in democracy, in human rights, in minority rights, in gender equality, and we do not have any affiliation with any political party. On the religious side, we believe in separation of state and religion. On social side, we believe in inclusion, tolerance, acceptance, and harmony. If you want to contact us, to support us, or for more information, you can find us on website. Let's now move on to our today's topic, which, as I mentioned, is the impact of war. Why this topic? Why we are starting with this topic? Because this presentation actually was prompted not only by the war in Gaza and war in Ukraine and the recent events around those two wars, but it is also prompted by one statement or speech made by the NATO Secretary General, Mr. Mark Rutte, who is the ex-Prime Minister of our country, the Netherlands. In his speech, he said, to prevent war, we need to prepare for it. It's time to shift to a wartime mindset. And please note that, a wartime mindset. And this means we need to strengthen our defenses even more by spending more on defense and producing more and better defense capabilities. We are not ready for what is coming our way in 4 or 5 years. Now, he is asking us to get ready and to have a war mindset. Now, what exactly is the war mindset? What does he mean by it? I just want to remind you that the government of Netherlands, if you go to their website, on one of the pages, they have listed down the items for an emergency kit. So what basically they are saying is, please get, and this is the war mindset, get ready with the emergency kit, because war can break anytime. I mean, this is huge exaggeration, but anyway, what does this kit include? This kit, and this is according to the website, a flashlight, charged power bank, and additional batteries. It says copies of identity documents and important telephone numbers, some cash, a battery powered or clockwork radio tuned to the emergency radio station, candles or tea lights and matches, a first aid kit with instructions, blankets to keep you warm, tools such as hammer, etc., spare keys for your house and your car, and toilet paper, and we know about toilet paper when it was Corona, toilet paper, hand wipes, soap, hand sanitizer, sanitary towels, toothpaste and toothbrush, whistle to keep the emergency services to locate you, 3 liters of water per person per day, and non-perishable food like tinned beans. Now, this is what the government of Netherlands is preparing people to be ready, and this is what the war mindset is, to get ready for the war. Now, what does it actually mean? What do they expect from us? What they are trying to do? And it is, so basically what they are asking us, hey guys, folks, get ready to accept very high taxes or higher taxes than now. Get ready to accept inflation, higher borrowing. We need to borrow money, obviously, because we have to spend on defense, higher defense budgets, higher unemployment, etc., etc. So they want us to be mentally ready to accept all these things. And not only that, we have to get ready to accept the calls for patriotism, offer more sacrifices, accept protectionism and military service, because there will be sooner or later a talk of that you have to go to the military. If your country needs you, you will be called for the military service. But not only that, all these emergencies, they are also used to silence and accept to silence the dissent and the opposition. It is designed to make us accept more control on media, because it's emergency, it's wartime, so we should be ready for all this. Erosions of human rights, and we have seen that time and again that in every war zone there is an erosion of human rights. They are all brushed aside. The rich getting richer, poor are getting even poorer, so we have to be ready for that. This is the war mindset, mind you. Use of emergency to implement political agendas. All the neo-fascist or neoliberal political agendas which they in peace times couldn't fully implement, the emergency situation allows them to implement that agenda. The huge profits in destroying the countries and destroying lives of millions of people, and then making more money on reconstructing and rebuilding their lives and the cities, and impose favorable conditions to end the war. We can see that how USA is trying to impose favorable terms for them on Ukraine or on Gaza. So this is what, and why they are doing that, and what is the war mentality and war economy. So if we look at in the peacetime, in the peacetime economy, the focus is on producing consumer goods and services and promoting trade and maintaining stability. So you spend more on the welfare of the people. And during the wartime, the contrary happens. The economy is mobilized for military production with resources diverted to the war efforts. If you look at World War II, which was the previous major war, for example, the factories were converted to produce weapons and vehicles, and civilian consumption was rationed to support the war. So we have seen this happening. If we look at the general government expenditure in the EU on education, for example, it was $746 billion or 4.7% of the GDP in 2022. The EU average for health expenditure amounted to 10.4% of the GDP. Total defense expenditure of the European Defense Agency, the member states of that agency, was $279 billion in 2023, which amounted to something like 1.6% of the GDP. If we look at the top 10 defense spendings, the US tops up, which is coming now close to $1 trillion, and the next 9 countries, if we take top 10, so US is about 916 billion, but if you add up the next 9 countries, they all together spend less than USA alone, and this is the peacetime economy. But if you compare this with 1944, which was again the World War II, the USA's spending on the war during the wartime was 42% of the GDP was spent on war, as compared to 1.6% 6%, or sorry, 3.6% in the peacetime. They were spending 42% of the GDP on the defense, on the war. Japan was spending 53% of their GDP on military, and USSR was spending 53%, and UK was also spending 53%. In this war, Ukraine is spending 37% of their GDP on defense, and Russia is spending 40% on the GDP. So this is, you see the contrast. In the peacetime, a fraction of the GDP is spent on defense, but during the wartime, it goes into 30s, 40s, and 50s%, even in 70s. So the cost of war is huge. If you look at now, for example, the US spending for Israel military operations in Gaza after the October 7, 23 to October 7, 24, it is over 22 billion US dollars. The 22 billion have been spent on a small strip of 2 million something people on a very small strip, which is, I think, twice the size of Texel. The war in Afghanistan over 2 decades has cost USA $2.3 trillion. And it has not only dollars, but also death of almost 2,500 US military personnel, almost 4,000 US contractors which have been killed, and more than close to 1,500 of allied troops. In 2003 to 2011, over $1 trillion have been spent on Iraq, or the war of Iraq. Ukraine war is spent, the estimates vary, but it is somewhere around 180, 185 billion, and it is still counting. We don't know where it is going to end up. So, and not only that, the war significantly contributes to the climate change. There are researches which show that the US Defense Department is one of the world's top greenhouse gas emitters. And a growing portion of Pentagon spending goes to the large tech firms. So who gets richer? The tech firms, and some other, I will come later to that. Then we see the post 9/11 wars. The US government is conducting counter-terror activities, which they call war on terror, in 78 different countries, and this is on record. There are operations going on to counter the terrorism in 78 countries. So they have no borders, there is no sovereignty. They can go and conduct a counter-insurgency operation wherever they want. At least, according to estimates, 940,000 people have died due to direct violence, the war violence, including civilians, armed forces on all sides, contractors, journalists, and humanitarian workers. An estimated 3.6 to 3.8 million people have died indirectly in post 9/11 war zones, bringing the total death toll at least to 4.5 to 4.7 million, and it is still counting. 38 million people have been displaced by post 9/11 wars. And then we do that, the wars waged by the West, anti-terror wars post 9/11, have displaced 38 million people, and then we sit here and complain that migrants are coming. All we need to do to stop migrants is to stop these wars, and the problem will be more or less solved. I mention a quote from Voltaire. He said, "It is forbidden to kill. Therefore, all murderers are punished unless they kill in large numbers and to the sound of trumpets." So these mass killings are done on the sound of trumpets, and there are big heroes who do these mass killings. Continuing with our post 9/11 wars, the wars have been accompanied by erosions in civil liberties, as I said, and human rights. And you can see in many countries the human rights abuses, from Bagram to Abu Ghraib to Guantanamo Bay, and you name it. There is a long list, and in the countries where the human rights and civil rights have been completely suspended. The cost of post 9/11 wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Syria totals to $8 trillion. And just imagine with this amount of money, if you spend that on peace and development and welfare, how much you can achieve in this world. So, and they want us to get ready for the war and have a war mindset and war mentality. US policymakers scarcely consider alternatives to the war. That is also amazing that there are so many other alternatives available which you need to carefully evaluate and consider and say, instead of war or limited war, are there some other alternatives? And they are mostly not considered. And not to forget that post 9/11 veterans are suffering from mental health disease. So if we take, to sum up, the data from more than 150 wars since 1870, it shows that the costs are highest for the country in which the war takes place. So it's not just the country which is waging the war, it is the country which is on the receiving end, and the most damage is done to those countries and those societies. And it's not only people, it's the buildings, machinery, infrastructure, everything is destroyed. The economic output on average falls by about 30% during the war periods. The inflations, they rise 15 to 50%. Ukraine only, as a result of this war, is expected to lose about $120 billion in GDP output. So this is not only the money spent on the bombs and the people dying, but also the economic side of it is humongous. And the non-belligerent third countries are expected to face output losses of about $250 billion. So countries who are not directly in the war, but have trade relations with the countries which are in the war, they also lose a lot, the neighboring countries, the trading partners, etc., etc. Now the thing is, they all know about this. They know how much damage a war does, how much it costs, how many people die, what damage is done to the environment, to the economy, to the people, to their health, to the infrastructure. But why still wage war? So the question really is, who benefits from the war? So if we look at that, it are logistics and reconstruction companies, private security contracting, weapon manufacturers, fuel companies, arms dealers, commodity dealers, black marketeers, the state themselves, politicians, and the lobbyists. These are generally the parties or the people or the groups which benefit, which have a huge financial benefit from these wars. And these companies, they range from weapons manufacturers like Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, everyone knows them, to logistics and reconstruction firms like Kellogg, Brown, and Root, and to armed private security contractors like Blackwater and DynCorp. So these are all these kinds of companies which profit from this. According to Heidi Peltier's analysis, she's done a huge analysis on this. Roughly half of the Pentagon budget, which is about $370 billion in 2019, it went to military contractors. So there are sometimes in Afghanistan war, for example, at one point there were more private military contractors in Afghanistan than the armed forces themselves. So about half the budget actually went to them. And if you might remember that Mr. Dick Cheney, I think the vice president at that time, he used to be the CEO and the biggest shareholder of Halliburton, which was one of the largest contractors for the war. So they directly, indirectly benefit from it. The Congressional Research Service estimates that in fiscal year 2020, the spending for contractors grew to $420 billion, well over half of the Pentagon budget. So, and the biggest losers are obviously the people, particularly in the conflicting zones and conflicting areas. So the war is actually very, very, very profitable business for few and a huge, huge disaster for some. To give you some sense of the the size of money and the profits. If you take Lockheed Martin, they got awards in billions in 2019 of $47 billion. The contracts they were awarded in 2020, just 1 year later, amounted to 75 billion. So from 47 billion to 75 billion in 1 year, this is the kind of money we are talking about. The Raytheon, they grew from 26 billion to 27.8 billion. If you look at General Dynamics, they're from 16 to 21. Boeing went from 15 to 21, and Northrop Grumman, it from 14 to 20 billion. So these private contractors, these companies, they see their profits growing in huge numbers. But they don't consider the incalculable loss which is done to people, to countries, to environment, and to the world, because that's not their concern. Their concern is to get this profit going. Now the loss is, like someone said, the war is hell. It has an impact on people that never heals. It is not something that war is over, ceasefire, so people can have peace and they go back to sleep and with their regular daily routines. No, the wounds never heal, and it is proven scientifically and medically and psychologically. It has a catastrophic effect on the health and well-being of nations, with more mortality and disability than any other major disease. No disease causes so much disability and mortality as these wars have done and will do. It destroys communities and families and often disrupts the development of the social and economic fabric of nations. The social, just look at Gaza, look at Ukraine, how social fabric has been torn apart, how lives of, and do you think this will ever heal? No. This as long as these, and this is passed on to generations. It's not just that with the change of a generation, we will see the healing process getting better. No. The increase in the incidence and prevalence of mental disorders. If you see huge mental disorder increasing by day, especially among children and women, the effects of war include long-term physical and psychological harm to children, as I said, and adults, as well as a reduction in material and human capital. Of course, so many people die and their ability to work is diminished. Their creativity is impacted. Endemic poverty, malnutrition, disability, economic, social decline, and psychological illness, psychiatric disorders, depressions and PTSD, disability, suspension of or abuse of human rights. We see that what's happening in Gaza. There are no human rights. Anything goes. It's free for all. And then aftermath, rebuilding of the life. Even after the ceasefires, when the rebuilding process starts, and these days the rebuilding is not just the reconstruction. We see people like Donald Trump saying, I will take over Gaza and turn it into a Riviera, a beach resort. So, and this Gaza and Ukraine wars actually brought new things to light. Actually, things which were obvious, they have become a bit more obvious. They are openly now, without any shame, talking about it. I will close with a quote from Mahatma Gandhi. He said, "What difference does it make to the dead, the orphans, and the homeless, whether the mad destruction is wrought under the name of totalitarianism or in the holy name of liberty or democracy? Their lives are basically ruined." So thank you very much, and hope to see you in our next talk again.